Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here in North Carolina. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. We are a people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel. We are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you. We are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Be kind and self-govern. And if you have any questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. Okay, so right now I am not sure if Anna is going to join or not join. But what I know is I have a message from her. So I'm going to go ahead and work on sharing that with you right now. She says, those that are among us who insist upon exact accounting, they apparently believe that their record keeping has been so precise that they alone possess the ability to render an accounting for those resources that have been managing for, quote unquote, the shining ones in our absence. I am one of the shining ones, the exact shining one appointed to do this work. My glory has been hidden from you because we do not wish to scare you into obedience. We want you to choose the right answer by using your own logic and following your own hearts, because your development and growth of wisdom is what is most necessary for success, not a small-minded and self-righteous attention to details, most of which you do not comprehend anyway. But let's begin with the basic misunderstanding on your part. This creation, this entire universe is a gift. It was given to you, all of you, each one of you. It was given freely with only a few stipulations, which have been preserved faithfully but not obeyed. You are to be caretakers of this planet and its resources. This does not imply any slave-like dedication to counting the number of ants or calculating how much sand covers the floor of the oceans, but instead requires the good faith effort of honest men not to pollute the environment, to find better sanitation options, to preserve the habitats of the plants and the animals, which are here to safeguard your own survival, to do all those things that common sense would and should compel you to do. Nurture the land, care for the animals, clean the seas, cherish the rainfall. It should be apparent that the diversity of this planet's biomes protects your own survival, and it should therefore reasonably be of concern to you to preserve your own safeguards. This is nonetheless a gift, and you may ruin and squander it like a 2-year-old with a hammer, and the judgment you suffer will not come from us. It will come from your own consciousness, your own awareness of what you have done and what you have chosen. In recent days, we have encountered excuses from the Chinese overlords for their failure to admit the credit owed to the living people of this planet. What lack of vision is this, that they can readily comprehend the existence of debt, but fail to account for the answering credit? They say it is a divine covenant, but we are the divine that wrote the covenants, and we do not remember ordaining any irrational bookkeeping that honors only one side of the transaction. For every action in this universe, there is an answering reaction. Nothing truly takes place in a void or without response. How then does anyone imagine that it is possible to accumulate a national debt without also accruing a national credit? Who will stand here and tell us that by calling it by a different name or finding a pretense not to recognize your creditors, you will magically forestall the reality of the national credit and keep it from being applied to any ephemeral national debt that could be owed? The books must be balanced, and they must be balanced now, immediately, with no further obfuscation or excuses. The living people who have been defrauded will be restored, and their nations, which have groaned under the weight of debts that they were never owed, will be restored. We have also been told that the elevated accountants are prevented by our covenants from taking any small portion of the receipts for any reason, and that they cannot or will not account a fiat credit to pay a fiat debt. This is like saying you won't add a 0 to a 1 and find that the sum is 1. There is no rational excuse for this pretense and obstruction, and we, the shining ones, did not authorize or mandate any such lunacy. Or again, this is like saying that you profit yourselves for no reason and no recompense, and that injustice is the inheritance of the shining ones. We reply that this is complete and utter bunk. The Creator does not stand in awe of the created, does not seek injustice or play favorites or tolerate any aberration of logic. Give credit where credit is due. Take credit when it is due. Offset the paper debts against the paper credits, which have been prepaid with labor and goods multiple times for every paper debt presented. Do not try to pretend that any debt exists now or at any time in the foreseeable future. The prior generations give witness against the claims of the wicked. We hear their voices and see their evidence. Indeed, it is plain to see for anyone who looks. What happens in your world? A man gives an IOU, a fiat debt note, for a hamburger and receives an actual hamburger in exchange. Who has funded everything? The cook who gave the hamburger who owes? The man who received the hamburger? The debt only accrues because the crook remains unpaid. The cook remains unpaid. And he is unpaid because his credit is not being recognized and accounted for in his favor. So recognize the debt of the corporations to the living men, and recognize also the necessity of returning interest on their credit, because you have inflicted usury on them for a debt that was never theirs. And this will tell you, no exact accounting is within the scope of living men. You simply do not and cannot know what is given for free and what is owed. You do not know the cost of a single tear, much less the cost of a life unlived, or life crippled by ignorance, or a life maimed by your own cruel stupidity and prejudice. Enough, unless you care to face the rage of the divine and the judgment of the absolute truth, let this warning and directive be enough. You received the seigniorage for every quote-unquote note that you printed out without authorization, a full 96% profit of the face value of every note that came off the printing press, and yet you want to pretend the remaining 4% was left unpaid? You received 96% of face value of currency that was not yours. You evildoers, and that balance is weighted against you. That and the interest on it is your debt to those you accuse of being indebted for the remaining 4% to you. Let the books be balanced and the truth be told. Likewise, you say, you cannot accommodate the cost of storing gold and silver from the profits you have received from lending out credit based on the same gold and silver? Yes, you can. And indeed you must, for you have profited yourselves greatly from your secretive use of assets belonging to others and haven't paid them anything in return. Indeed, you now want to pretend that they are your debtors for storage fees instead of admitting what you have done. What we have seen your trading platforms, we have seen your advertising, home loans, by which you solicited people to loan their homes to you so that you could inordinately profit and gain an earned security interest in their homes and other property. We have seen every lie you've ever told, every fraud you've ever created and committed. We, the shining ones, say that this is all nonsense and that your excuses are like the lies that a small child tells. Easily perceived, easily discounted. We have kept the true accounting of the tears that have been cried because of your lies. We have numbered the deaths because of this. The cost of those who have lived truncated lives, the cost of those who have been blinded and maimed, who have drawn ragged breaths because of your lies. We've monitored the cost to the earth because of your legal fictions. And we decree that this system of things is now at an end. What is wrong must be made right. What is upside down must be returned upside up. The credit owed must be accounted for to the best of your human ability and applied. It will never be exact, and the balance will always be changing because life and tides are always changing. Accept that. Accept that you cannot know your next step, much less the cost of a single tear. You must learn to ride the wave until you become the wave. Remember to choose life, all life, including your own. Life and love are the only values and the values on which every other value depends. I am the fiduciary, the grandmother coming with a mop and bucket to clean up this mess. And it is a humble office rendered for no reason but love. Nonetheless, it is an office having power both in heaven and on earth. And what is decreed will be honored in accordance with justice, logic, and truth. Hasten, therefore, to bring your operations into compliance and open your eyes to the evils you have allowed, so that the guilt may not be held against you. Your part is small and easy compared to the reckoning of the living God. Notice to agents is notice to principles. Notice to principles is notice to agents. It's a good one, right? It's a good one. Anna says to tell your friends and neighbors now. Tell them now. Tell them to please listen carefully and read each word. The government is shut down. She says the entire federal civil service, except for volunteers who are working without pay, is gone. 2/3 of the government you have known all your life has vanished in the twinkling of an eye, and it's not going to come back. Tell your friends and neighbors who are suffering limited incomes, the retirees and the veterans on the ledge, the farm families who are facing collapsing supply chains, and those who are suffering from this sudden collapse. Even though it has been brewing for a decade or more, of the programs they have depended on, they need to go to the globalfamilygroup.com and reclaim their birthright and get their prosperity account set up ASAP. Shine like stars in the darkness and fear nothing, for no evil can prosper any longer. Okay? Tell everyone. Do you know that right now there's a rise of mercenary governance? We are witnessing the transformation of public safety into private enforcement. Local sheriff departments, once trusted to serve and protect, now bear the weapons of war, not against crime, but against the very people they swore to defend. Armed with federal grants, battlefield vehicles, and surveillance drones, these departments no longer resemble civil servants. They are mercenary forces operating in commercial capacity under color of law with habitual malice and systemic ignorance of the Constitution. This is not a public service. This is not law enforcement. This is a standing army on American soil. No act of Congress, no federal program, no bureaucratic memo can override the Constitution. No armored truck, drone, or assault rifle can give lawful authority where none exists. What we face is domestic militarization without lawful war, mercenary conduct without lawful commission, and commercial enforcement without lawful jurisdiction. These are not isolated incidents. This is a pattern. It's time to name what is happening on the land and soil. A breach of the peace, a betrayal of trust, and an open act of war against the people. Let it be known. Standing armies have no place among the free. Mercenaries have no right to rule. The people shall not be intimidated into silence. Constitutional prohibition against standing armies and domestic militarization, foundational principles like the Constitution of the United States explicitly expresses deep suspicion and legal limitation on standing armies. The founders knew that any domestic military presence not directly accountable to the people posed an existential threat to liberty. The Third Amendment prohibits the quartering of soldiers in private homes during peacetime without the owner's consent. A recognition of the threat a standing force poses to civil society. The Second Amendment references a well-regulated militia controlled by the people as a safeguard against tyranny, not militarized government entity enforcing its will against civilians. The Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 prohibits the use of federal military forces for domestic law enforcement, reflecting the legal wall between police powers and military powers. Why is this a violation? Well, when local sheriff's departments received federal military equipment, such as MRAPs and surveillance drones and battlefield-grade armor, and used them against the citizens without an actual battlefield or war zone in play, they crossed the threshold into a de facto domestic standing army. This violates the spirit and intent of constitutional protections, the trust granted by the people to those who swear oaths to serve them, and blurs the line between law enforcement and martial enforcement. Dangerously precedented. This is dangerously precedented, okay? So when sheriffs dress like soldiers, use battlefield equipment, and begin training with federal and corporate-backed surveillance technology, the military-industrial complex effectively invades civil policing, a hallmark of totalitarian regimes. Commercial capacity, color of law, and mercenary behavior, law enforcement operating in commercial capacity. Like, what the public often doesn't realize is that many sheriff's departments, courts, and agencies now function not as constitutional bodies, but as commercial entities. And this occurs when you have fines and fees and arrests and citations, and their revenue streams, okay, for them. Bond schedules and court proceedings are tied to securitized instruments traded in the financial market, like the court registry investment system, okay? Police departments enter into contracts with federal or private vendors for military equipment or grant funding, and thus becomes corporate agents, not public servants. In this mode, sheriffs are no longer peace officers, but administrators, for-profit driven enterprises under the color of law. Color of law, the appearance of legal power without lawful authority. When force is used without valid jurisdiction or in violation of rights, it is not law. It is tyranny. Mercenary behavior and conflict of interest. By taking military-grade weapons and vehicles under federal programs while operating as commercial entities, local sheriff's departments become, in practice, mercenary forces paid by federal and private interest groups. Enforcers of contractual performance, like asset seizure, court compliance, for revenue. And so foreign agents, if operating under international bonding systems without full public disclosure, and most dangerously, these departments no longer operate from a duty of care or constitutional principle, but from habitual malice and systemic indifference to rights. Their focus shifts from protect and serve to command and extract. Militarized enforcement of commercial policy is not public safety. It is a private enforcement, often in violation of due process, property rights, and natural liberty. Dual capacity violation. These actors routinely violate the separation of powers by acting as judge, jury, and enforcer in roadside encounters and civil asset seizures. functioning simultaneously as agents of the trust, like public servants, and beneficiaries for profit, a fundamental breach of fiduciary law. This dual capacity operation is unlawful, unethical, and unconstitutional. Psychological and societal harm caused by domestic militarization, like erosion of trust and psychological warfare. When the sheriff's department roll into rural towns with military-grade vehicles, drones, and combat gear, the psychological message is clear: fear and intimidation, not protection. This visual escalation, it instills a combat mentality in both officers and citizens, signals that we the people are enemy combatants, not those being served, triggers trauma responses, especially in rural families with histories of land theft, court abuse, and or generational state aggression. This makes community members less likely to engage with law enforcement, further eroding trust and dismantling the fabric of local sovereignty. When those sworn to protect use weapons of war on domestic soil against unarmed civilians, the line between law enforcement and tyranny is not blurred, it is crossed. Community fragmentation and the rise of fear governance, like militarization, doesn't stop crime, okay? It transforms the role of government into fear-based control structure. And the more armored vehicles and black-suited enforcers appear, the more dissent is silenced. Not with open debate, but through coercive presence. Citizens self-censor to avoid targeting lawsuits or state retaliation. Venerable groups like ranchers, minorities, and dissidents become scapegoats for land grabs or asset forfeiture. Community solidarity breaks down as people are isolated in fear of retaliation. This isn't just poor policy, it is weaponization of governance. He who establishes his rule by force rules over a kingdom of silence. The real danger is normalization of tyranny. Once it's militarized, it's normalized. Every dispute becomes security issue. Every peaceful citizen becomes a potential threat. Every home becomes a target zone. And the Constitution becomes technically like a technicality rather than the law of the land. This sets the stage for domestic warfare under legal fiction. The founders warned us, standing armies on domestic soil, especially when acting without accountability, are the clearest mark of despotism. So legal violations and constitutional crisis, like standing armies, are forbidden. And this is exactly that. The U.S. Constitution in Article 1, Section 8, and supported by the Third Amendment, strictly limits the use of standing armies, especially when operating domestically against civilian population. This is what we are seeing on the landscape with the boots on the ground, and it is a blatant violation of this principle. Sheriff's offices are not military branches. No public referendum or constitutional amendment has authorized domestic militarization. Federal surplus military programs have equipped local departments with tanks, drones, and battlefield weapons without lawful authority or oversight. Deputies are trained in military tactics to be used on civilian soil, not under the rules of engagement or due process. This is not law enforcement. This is an unauthorized occupation under the color of law. Violation of oaths and abuse of office from every public official, like sheriff, deputy, judge, or politician, swears an oath to the U.S. Constitution and their state constitution. And the moment they participate in, approve of, or benefit from militarized coercion without due process, they violate their sworn oath. They become personally liable under Title 18, U.S. Code 242, the deprivation of rights under color of law. They breach the public trust, triggering fiduciary default and loss of lawful authority. Any action taken under such breach is null and void, ab initio, and can be reversed, rescinded, and prosecuted. Commercial and international law breaches, militarized enforcement conducted for profit via asset forfeiture, court registry investments, or land theft constitutes commercial war crimes under international human rights law, violations of the law of nations, breach of peace treaties and universal legal norms, use of force for private enrichment, which aligns with the definitions of racketeering and domestic terrorism. When a sheriff becomes a mercenary for profit, armed by federal military grants and serving private interests, they cease being a peace officer and become a commercial combatant. So, how to reclaim authority and stop escalation peacefully by reasserting the power of the people. The Constitution is not suspended by policy, equipment, or grant of money. Every living man on the land and soil must remember all lawful authority flows from the people, not the state. Government officials, including sheriffs and judges, are public servants, not rulers. The people have the inalienable right to resist tyranny, to expose corruption, and to hold public officials accountable through lawful processes. And when we talk about public officials, we're talking about the de facto public officials. This means that the public may file affidavits and claims of harm. So living men do testimonies in the form of an affidavit. We demand oaths, bonds, and authorizing jurisdiction. We record and document all interactions, lawfully assemble and petition for redress, demand grand jury presentment and independent investigation. This is all against the de facto. The peaceful remedy, law over force. The solution is not violence. The solution is lawful remedy. Organize locally under lawful assemblies. Educate others on the limits of government power and the rights retained by the people. You can file commercial liens and trust revocations and jurisdictional challenges against, offending officials, but we currently do not have a government, okay? Like the de facto is not there. You could demand the immediate demilitarization of all local agencies not authorized by the state constitution. Militarized law enforcement cannot operate against peaceful men and women without violating the most sacred principles of American law. This is just something we can present to the military locally because they need to operate under law and order, and we have to educate them. But look, escalation is dangerous for everyone. So if this is not stopped, the escalation invites national scrutiny, civil unrest. I don't know that there are going to be any federal investigations because the federales are not there. They're not funded and they're not coming back. But we have the military to deal with, okay? So this creates irreparable mistrust between the people and the government, breeding resistance, fear, and a breakdown of civil society. This endangers every honest officer who took an oath in good faith by placing them in unlawful roles with personal liability. And it fosters an environment where innocent people are treated as enemy combatants. The longer militarization continues without lawful authority, the more fragile peace becomes, and the more likely a lawful people will exercise their inherent right to resist unlawful rule. So the call for decentralization and lawful local oversight, restoring civil order through local sovereignty. The rightful power of a free people is decentralized governance. Authority returned to the counties, to the communities, and to the families where law begins. When state agencies become corrupt, militarized, and unaccountable, it is the lawful duty of the people to revoke consent to abusive administrations. We do not consent. Form lawful local oversight boards free of bar association interference. Reaffirm common law principles and constitutional limits at the county level. Reorganize local peacekeeping according to the oath, trust, and public accountability, not military readiness. Local jurisdictions must be governed by the people domiciled there, not foreign financiers or federal grant programs that come with strings attached. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 12 of the Constitution, standing armies are prohibited. No appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Well, they're defunded, okay? People, we need to get our courts in order. We need to get our assemblies organized. We need to be knowledgeable about these things. Okay? We need for the sheriffs to help us communicate this thing, and if these demands are not immediately fulfilled, all responsible agents will be placed on a personal commercial liability. Each action henceforth shall be treated as a willful act of war against the people, and the people shall reserve the right to file under UCC liens, tort claims, international declarations of harm under the law of nations. This isn't a plea and it's not a request. It's a lawful declaration from the people of the land. I hope everybody's doing well. Let me see what's going on in the chat here. Yeah, they never had immunity yet. Anyway, I know Anna has a lot going on. She's got to get everything ready to present to the World Court. She's got a video and all kinds of other work that she's overwhelmed with. And so we need her to be focused on that. And I appreciate all of you guys for continuing to follow the work, and also for holding the line. And we will be back with more information. We're going to be back with Exit Stage Left on Tuesday, and we'll be back here next Thursday. And I'll be doing my Saturday call at noon. So that is definitely on this week again. So we're back on the Zoom calls every first Saturday of the month. We meet in the flesh. So I didn't have my call last week, and I look very forward to seeing all of you. And all the links that you need are in the show notes. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening and a fantastic weekend. I think it's very important for everyone to please make sure that you are prepared to be able to handle whatever it is that you have to handle around your home without power. Because what happens is when the military comes in, they're just going to turn the power off. And then there's going to be a negotiation, a conversation, or whatever. And when they finally realize what is going on actually in reality, hopefully it's not going to be 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know. Hopefully it's not going to take all that long. Anna had the banks, they were supposed to be able to be ready in time for any such, trauma. But in which case, those guys, meaning like everyone who doesn't have a GFG account, which is millions and millions and, billions of people, okay? That means that all of us in this one world government are going to be need to be taking care of everyone out of the goodness of our hearts, because they will not have a solution. We will be the only solution. And if you have good leadership in place, then what you're going to do is you're going to do everything to grow them. And you're going to get them signed up with their own GFG account, not tell them to go find, a distribution location. They need their own GFG account so that they can also help. They're going to need a bank account, and the only one that's going to be up is the one that Anna has put together with GFG. So that is what everyone's going to have to do. You're going to have to try and do the best that you can to help everyone get their accounts opened up, so that as the one system falls and disappears, poof, then, they can use the only one that we have, with the only lawful government that we have, which is us, the real Americans, the ones that they were impersonating all this time. Okay? So we need to do less to try to refer people to food banks and more to give them what they need, give them some money, help carry them long enough for them to get their own GFG account opened up. That's what you're going to need to be able to do. And everyone should be doing that. And then everybody will be able to be harmonized. Okay? This is not a test. This is not a test. Go ahead and get your frequencies aligned, okay? That's what we're going to have to do next week. So get ready. I think that you think that we have a government here. The military will just take over. They're not going to shut their courts down. They aren't there. There is no government. We don't need permission from anybody. Anna has already told you, we do not need permission from anybody to do what we have to do. There is no government except us. It's just us. We are the official government. I had someone say to me today that they were going to wait to hear when the media was going to recognize us. Are you guys comprehending that I am the media right now? This is the real media right here. We're the real journalists right here. Do you think NBC and CBS and Fox and whatever you guys think is official media is real? That is all the theater. Sean, if you ask me about prosperity cards one more time, I think I'm going to scream. There is no prosperity card. You have an account. It's going to be digital right now. And don't ask that question again. Thank you. I think that everyone needs to really comprehend law. As it is bound, it must be unbound. And I just started this podcast with a message from Anna, and it is my encouragement for you to go to the beginning and listen again as soon as we end the podcast, okay? I want you to listen to that message again, and then listen to it again, and then listen to it again, because the answers are there, all right? You know that there's great love here for you. There's great love here for you. And I'll look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday if you join my Zoom call, or Tuesday if you join me with Exit Stage Left, or here Thursday next week, okay? Have a great evening.